Hi, everyone. Welcome to this edition of the Office Hours. We have a number of people on the call today, which is great. Hopefully we'll have some very good and enlightening discussions. And it will be a good moment for us all to come together and have better understanding, hopefully, and yeah, share information, collaborate as a community. Good. Is anyone who would like to start off this office hours with a discussion or news? Yeah, okay.
I was wondering, Cara, would it be good to just do a quick run through people on the call to introduce themselves? Just have a quick hello, who are you, what you do, and
I think that's
kind of
a
go
great
from
idea.
there. Yeah.
Excellent. Would you like to start, Dave?
Yeah, cool. Hi, my name's Dave. I'm an engineer working on Jenkins X, and I work for Cloudbees. Who wants to go next?
I'm Andrew. I am also an engineer working on Jenkins X. I also am at Cloudbees, largely working on Lighthouse these days.
Okay, so everybody who works in Cloudbees is engineer and works for Jenkins X. Raise your hands. Say aye. You need to say aye, otherwise you don't appear in the picture.
Aye.
Close enough.
There we go. Aye. I'm not an engineer today, but anyways, working on Jenkins X. Now the rest.
Non-engineers or engineers?
You didn't say aye.
Oh, I did say aye, but I was muted.
This is a complicated system, Victor.
Okay, I give up.
I can go next. I'm a software engineer working on Jenkins X. Yeah.
I'm Dean Smith. I've introduced myself before. I'm a manager for two small teams. Both are working on CJXD. One is the UI, and the other one team works on the CLI and open source features largely.
I'll go after Dean. So I'm Dora. I work also on Jenkins X. I manage the team that's building the SaaS using Jenkins X. And I appreciate Victor's attempt to optimize the introductions. So good job, Victor, even if we didn't really get it. Thank you.
I will go next. I'm Ethan Jones. I live in Washington, D.C. I'm one of the PMs at Cloudbees that works on the Cloudbees stuff related to Jenkins X.
I can go next just to be next to Ethan. I live in Barcelona, Spain. I'm another one of the PMs working on Jenkins X.
I can go because I'm actually at Cloudbees, but not working on Jenkins X. But I'm involved with the project kind of in an ancillary fashion. I'm kind of in professional services here and actively working with the project in different ways. So my name's Kenny. Hi.
And I'll go next right away since I'm in a similar situation as Kenny. Hi, my name is Marco. I'm on the customer success team and dealing with customer success operations. So tooling for the customer success team and making processes and stuff like that.
I didn't introduce myself formally on this call yet. I'm Cara Delamalk. I'm French-American. I live in London. I work with Jenkins X with the community. Thank you all for being on this call.
Hi, I was a little bit late. I guess you have some self-introduction round, if I see it right. My name is Gert. I'm one of your users. I'm using Jenkins X mainly for talks. I have a small pet project where I'm trying to use it. Unfortunately, I could not convince my current customer. I'm a freelancer, my current customer, to make use of it. So they have some different GitOps implementation in use. But yeah, I'm learning about Jenkins X and using it and giving some talks about it more in Europe or in Germany every now and then. That's it.
I will follow that. My name is Mauricio Salatino, and yeah, I'm also like a Jenkins X user. I've been using it since basically the project started. Quite having a lot of fun with it, and I presented about the project today in a Portuguese conference, online conference called JNation. And Gerd, it would be really nice to know where in Germany are you based, because I'm going to Germany quite often, so maybe we can just grab some coffee.
I live in I live close to Frankfurt, so
cool.
in the center of Germany.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah, feel free to.
If I'm around, I will ping you.
If you're around, yeah.
Great.
I can go next. So I'm Ankit. I work on Jenkins X, but I just work on the so I am a site reliability engineer based in US. That's it. Nothing more.
I'm Pete. So I used to work in engineering on Jenkins X, and I now work as an architect at CloudBees. I'm currently focusing on identity and access management.
Hi everyone. I'm Kai Cooper. I'm predominantly work on Jenkins X as a general rule, but have been in the SaaS team for quite some time, and now focusing on identity and access management internally.
Okay, Gareth Evans, yeah, work on the SaaS. I've just got back in the house after chasing my dog down the road, so I'm a little bit out of breath.
Yeah, I can go. I'm Mark, also working on SaaS. I joined this call late, so I didn't realize we were doing introductions because my son ran in the room, so I had to chase him out.
Alfonso here from Seville, also like Mark, Gareth, and Kai, part of the SaaS team.
Yeah, hi, here's Max, working on Jenkins X as an engineer as well, and I live in Berlin, and I work particularly on the UI. So if you come by Berlin, say hello.
I would love to, but they don't let me.
It sounds like we might have a bit of a Berlin meetup going on. That sounds nice.
We have a few more people on the call, but you're not obliged to introduce yourself. You're welcome to, though. Well, we can move on to today's office hours. The one topic we have on our agenda is status of Jenkins X, and Christopher, who put the issue actually on the doc, is not here right now, which is kind of unfortunate since he wrote it. But I'm assuming this relates to the blog post that Mauricio wrote, and we're very happy to have such active discussion and interest in the project. So we appreciate Mauricio's post very much.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm just trying to help, and I can see that James just answered in the issue, so which is good.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can get like a more like a discussion here in the office hours or something.
But this is a very good forum, essentially, for the community to discuss what they, what kind of community they want in this project, but also what they themselves are looking for technically from the project, as a community, as an organization.
I mean, I will say I'm happy to make a comment on how product leadership at CloudBees see this, but if that's what people want to hear, but I'd also actually really like to hear from everyone here who's outside of CloudBees on what y'all think and what y'all want us to be caring about.
Well, I didn't prepare something, but I would appreciate to get some more insight into the internal architecture of Jenkins X and all of its components. So we have the the JX tool, the command line interface, and we have a lot of operators in the background. And for some use cases, it's always not clear to me what happens. So if you describe a software architecture, there are usually different views. You have a deployment view or a runtime view, etc. And that's something I'm missing from the Jenkins X documentation, because it would help a lot when for debugging, or just to understand how it works and how things run together. So this is something I would really appreciate if you could update the documentation with some architecture views of Jenkins X in general.
Now that's a really interesting one. Is Oscar on the call by any chance?
He's not, because I was trying to ping him on Slack and I couldn't find him. I know that he's just starting his day now.
Maybe it's a little bit early. It was like, I know Oscar has been putting together some diagrams. He sent them on to me last week. He's kicked off this really nice project where he's actually doing diagrams via code. So I think he's currently using Python to do what some kind of architecture diagrams. So it's a shame he's not here, but I'll have a chat with him to see if we can schedule some stuff in for maybe next time.
Yeah, I saw his diagrams and it's potentially very useful. I think that he's going to put them to the docs once he's more comfortable. And that would be a great subject probably for the next office hours.
Yeah, okay. I'll have a chat with him about it and see what we can do.
Just on that point though, is it you more looking towards like reference architecture rather than because it depends on the system that you're trying to apply, I guess, and the things you want to enable, things you want to disable. Is that what you're?
Yeah, for instance, when running into a problem, it's often very unclear what was happening in the background. Maybe for instance, if I import a project, what is happening during runtime? So maybe the JX tool puts something into Git, then pushes it to GitHub, then creates a new build jobs, etc. So and what is happening in the background. So I would not only be interested into a static view where I can see the several operators and third-party components like GitHub or Nexus or a Docker registry, etc. But also a dynamic view. So what happens during the runtime? So maybe some sequence diagrams or some activity diagrams where I can see, okay, what is the workflow behind it? And I think to have a live or an up-to-date architecture, I think it's a good approach to derive that somehow automatically from the code. So the problem with architecture documentation usually is that it's old as soon as you write it down, because you're changing your code then, and you never update your architecture documentation. So to have something generated out of the code base would be great from my point of view.
Yeah, I know there are some tools out there like for Terraform where you can generate like a dot graph and things, but the problem is that they're not really easy to read all the time due to the way
maybe something like Hiali that gives you the network flow would get us closer, because I don't know how many use Hiali, right? But it's an amazing way to see how things flow from one component to another and what communicates with what and stuff like that. Now, unfortunately, I think that Hiali works only with service mesh, but hey,
one thing that we found quite useful in previous projects, which use like a very distributed way of having different components and microservices, was we installed like Weaveworks agents, which seem to automatically plot this communications between all different components of a system quite well. I don't know whether there's something that would work well for you in that scenario.
Yeah, probably. I think, but this sounds like a different approach. Maybe they could also be combined. So on the one hand, you could maybe generate something out of the code, or document your code, or the runtime which is composed from the code, so to say. And on the other hand, you could also do some tracing. So maybe with open tracing or something else, you could also show the workflow between the different components. And this would also help for debugging purposes. If you could see, okay, my call from the JX CLI has reached until the start of the pipeline, but then it did not proceed since whatever component, whatever operator in the background didn't answer in time. And so to have some real runtime view of it by a tool like open tracing or Jaeger or whatever would also be a good idea. But for me, it would be sufficient in the moment to just get an architectural view, so to say, the specification part, and not the real implementation. Maybe this would also go too much into details, but you can do both. I think.
Yeah.
So is the primary use case to aid debugging issues?
Debugging and understanding, probably. Yeah. And also maybe for some use cases, some components are optional. So I don't know, maybe I do only need some internal Docker registry if I'm not using GCR or something. So I would like to see what are the essential parts which are needed to make the workflow happen, and what are probably optional parts, and just to get a better understanding what happens.
I think there's over 450 commands that you can run. So if you only run 10 of them, it would be nice to know what you could turn off.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, so I mean that sounds like a great thing. Where's the best place to do that, Kara? Is that to create an issue on the JX docs repo, and we can start working? Is that something that we would do under the Summer of Docs thing?
It could potentially be a Summer of Docs project, in which case having an issue which sort of spec'd it out a bit would be really useful for those people who are applying to Season of Docs. That would be excellent. Thank you, Gareth. An issue would be great. And then we can gather some ideas on there and move forward with documentation. There's also a documentation sprint happening, I believe, this week or next week for the
next Tuesday.
Yeah, great. Good. And we will be opening that up, as well as when we have more information, we will be opening that up to the community for anyone who would like to join on that. But so having more information on an issue would be excellent. And then as we progress on that, we could do another presentation in next office hours on it, which would be great.
Yeah, sounds good. So I will open an issue, and then we can do some discussion on the issue.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
We also have a question from Ankit. Would you like to state your question, Ankit?
Yeah, so if you click on that issue, it talks about the upgrade CLI. I'm not sure if we actually need that thing. Like, what is the use case for having upgrade CLI? I actually wrote it down in the issue, so if you want to share it or something, that actually makes sense. I wrote a lot of stuff in that issue.
Yes. For those who can't see the issue, I'll just quickly read over it. It's a proposal, deprecate JX Upgrade CLI. Currently, we have a command, JX Upgrade CLI, to check and upgrade the CLI binary version. I think, and this proposal was made by Ankit, I think it might be better to deprecate and eventually remove this command. We have documentation about installing JX CLI in different OS using the package managers. we are not getting any additional benefit from having an upgrade CLI command. It is more maintenance to have it. This is a good point. We should check the latest version available on GitHub when someone runs a JX version and display the link to the installation page in the documentation website. We could, yeah. And so that would be a link being shown in the command line. Is that correct?
Sorry, what? Oh, I missed the last part.
This would be a link being shown on, like, as part, as a response on the command line.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. We could probably ask in the community Slack channel what they think about having this command, i.e. if it's getting a lot of use or not. And the further discussion on this issue from Gareth, I'd love to get Hardy's view on this. There was a thought. I'm sorry?
Is he actually here, Hardy?
He couldn't be here today, I don't think. But the argument is definitely relevant, is which way do you go in this situation? And
yeah, I think we definitely have too many ways of upgrading your CLI. And it would be good to consolidate on a way. I put the comment on because I know that Hardy had a proposal a while back to actually remove all of the brew stuff and only use JX Upgrade CLI because it allowed us to lock to a particular version in a version stream and make sure that we don't go later than a particular version or something. It gave us a bit more support. Also, it helped you keep stuff in sync if you're switching between clusters. So that's why I tagged him in that, because it would be good to get his views on that.
I mean, we can do the same using curl, right? Like if I know the, say for instance, I want 2.1.5, then I can just use curl and actually get that. Having that command would like, it's just more code to actually maintain down the line. And it's like different OS will have a different stuff. So we have to take that into account also, right? Like when you have JX, when you have to change the CLI version using that command. So brew or curl would actually make more sense. Or in Windows, I don't know, Choco or something. I have no idea about Windows.
So just back to Gareth's point, like one thing I think we don't do very well right now in JX is make it easy to switch between clusters. And if we were to remove the package manager dependency from JX itself, it would make it easier to be able to kind of namespace the JX binary with the cluster name, so that we could have different versions of JX depending on the cluster that you're actually switching to, which I think would be a nice thing to do. It would take a bit of refactoring about how we currently look up some of our configuration. But I think it would potentially fix some of the issues that we have.
That actually makes sense. Like if you have different clusters, then having different JX binaries for them. Yeah, you can't do that using curl, or I mean, it becomes complicated, right? Like I have to have JX2 or JX3 and something like that. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I will think about it more.
Okay, maybe we can discuss a little bit more over the issue. Cool. What was the second issue you posted there, Ankit?
Go ahead. Fine.
The second issue is on upgrading to Kubernetes 1.16. So this is very much Dean's area, but it's a good topic of conversation.
Well, Ankin had an update yesterday that he was able to create a 116 cluster. I don't know anybody who's ever done that before. And if you have, it'd be interesting to know your experience, because I thought it was going to be a huge amount of additional work. But we haven't done the discovery. We don't know the scope of the effort involved. So what's your current status on that?
JExpert seems to work. If I change the Helm charts, like I change the versions of the Helm charts, it seems to work. But I have not gone beyond, beyond the boot command. So if somebody else has tried it, then I would be interested to know if there are any issues with that. I will try to fix them, but see what I can do.
We have some people freeing up soon, and the idea was that we'd have an engineer who would be committed to this at CloudBees. But this would be very much a community. There'd have to be a lot of community involvement, because we have very few people and limited scope and expertise. But I don't think it's going to be a massive effort. I'm pleasantly surprised. So thank you. And I think the idea was that we'd kick something off in early June. Well, we're there, so let's shoot for next week. I think the breadth of the scope of what we want to support is 113 to 116 everywhere. And Gareth, you had questions about this.
Yeah, no, the range of support is kind of key, and warning or erroring when you're trying to support something that's quite a bit greater than what we can handle. We know there are issues with 118, for instance, usually down to namespaces and API versions. So it'd be good to. We don't have anything in there to lock it down or to warn or something, but that's cool. Something that we probably should do internally, we need to extend our BDD tests and make sure that we're testing on clusters of different versions. So if we're saying we're supporting that range, then let's create a version stream that does each. I don't think that should be, I'm looking at Andrew here, but I don't think that's a particularly large effort to get that in.
This was brought up yesterday in the documentation SIG meeting, and that's exactly right. And as such, I think we need a supportability matrix, and to better not only warn people, but also in the documentation that it should say, here's the Kubernetes versions that are supported, we know work. And I think that's healthy.
Do we have an easy way of being able to specify the Kubernetes version that we install right now? I know with at least some of the JX create cluster variants, I don't think you can. With Terraform, maybe we can.
Yes. I think on GKE, I think there's a flag you can specify. In the Terraform module, I think we may lock it down to release channel at the moment. I'm not sure.
You can actually give that, like you can actually give it as an input to the module. Like for instance, if you want 1.16, you can do that, because that's how I created the cluster. So I mean, clicking around is a bit complicated sometimes, but yeah, you can do that using the Terraform module.
Was that using the JX Terraform module?
Yes. Yes.
Cool. On the EKS.
Yes. EKS Terraform module.
I have a feeling that GKE works slightly differently on that.
Yeah. I'm looking at it. I was looking at it literally right before this. You can't in the GCP one.
You can. There are ways of. But there
it's
are
not
ways
a variable. I should say it's not a variable in the Terraform, the Terraform Google
in the JX.
JX.
Yeah.
It's not a variable.
But we can. It's I think it's kind of interpreted internally. There are things that we could expose to make that much easier. That's
Gareth, you may have frozen. Your Wi-Fi may have dropped.
No, he's not frozen.
No, it's just me. Oh.
Yeah, I see him dancing. The Tecton kitty is dancing.
Maybe it was my Wi-Fi. Apologies.
The internet's terrible.
It was too hot to move like that.
Do you want me to add that as an issue? I've got that open right now on my browser.
What, that's too hot? Sadly, I don't think we can fix that.
So we want to be able to provide the ability to, for the GKE Google module, set a version of the cluster. Yeah.
Yeah. So either so I suppose it's we either go down the route of saying I explicitly want a 113, 114, something like that, or we expose the release channel as an overrideable variable. Yeah. So release channel is something that's GKE only, where they have like a stable, a normal maybe, and a rapid. Right, there's someone at my door. I'll be back.
The dog has come back.
Was that a rooster?
His dinner's ready.
The brilliant doorbell.
We have a comment in the chat for this by Hervé. I managed to run JExpert on 117 by manually changing the generated charts, but it was on a testing cluster. He hasn't used it in production. Would you like to speak to this, Hervé? Anyways, very interesting information for us. So if you wanted to add anything to that issue, that would be useful. Not a lot to add. Okay, fine.
Yeah, it'd be interesting, like promotions and imports, quick starts, all the really good stuff, how well that all works there. And I think we need a test matrix and to cover at least the happy path in BDD, as was mentioned before. And that can be part of the epic. It does feel like there's an epic here in the works, and there's no question. I don't think it's that much effort. Then we can think about 117. It never ends.
Does anybody have any other questions for the team that they'd like to discuss?
I got a question for Terry, if you see her. Terry, if you're listening, did you ever get the Sonar app working in a pipeline?
So I was waiting for confirmation that it was ready to test.
It is.
Okay, great. We'll look into that this week.
I'd like to start using it if it does work. Thank you.
How's Lighthouse going, Andrew?
Well, I hope. So yeah, GitLab, I am feeling pretty confident in, hoping that we get enough feedback over the next month or two to be able to take it to GA, and which you find how many other issues there are lurking. Bitbucket server should work, but it is janky because it has to use a comment to put a track labels, because there aren't labels on Bitbucket server. And also what really annoys me is that Bitbucket server doesn't support the same comment markdown syntax as GitHub and GitLab. And so the comments end up looking really ugly. but it should work. And yesterday, I merged in a tweak to make it so that you can use the run if changed field in the scheduler config for a context, for a pre-submit context, to conditionally run a pipeline when there's a PR, depending on what files have changed. That functionality has always been there, but the way that we're using required context meant that it wasn't possible to say this context is required, but only if it actually needed to run in the first place. That is now working, so that's nice. And yeah, just continuing to churn onward. It's been the default for over a month now, I think. So a couple little aches and pains here and there, but I think it's been doing pretty well.
I love it. The pod runs so much more clean than Prow. It's so much lighter. It really is a much lower footprint.
I'm looking forward to testing out that conditional context stuff based off of the files that have changed.
Yeah, I plan to try out some stuff with that on jx.git itself, so that we don't have to build everything when we're making like a README change, etc.
Cool. Is anybody on the call looking to use Bitbucket support at the moment?
Or GitLab?
Besides Kenny.
Oh. Okay. If anybody's watching the video afterwards, feedback on it would be awesome. People want to take it for a spin.
I will fix bugs as quickly as I can. I enjoy fixing bugs.
You can imagine we keep Andrew pretty busy.
Andrew, do you know of any other projects that are using Lighthouse?
No, at this point, Lighthouse is very thoroughly entangled with Jenkins X itself. At some point, I want to change it to be a bit more pluggable in terms of what the execution backend is, but my first priority was making it work correctly for Jenkins X and be architecturally sound overall, and so we could get the support for the additional SCM providers. But at some point, I do plan to do that to make it more flexible in that regard, so that someone could do a Jenkins backend or a raw Tecton backend, etc.
That would be very cool. It's a very,
cool.
very good tool, and it's great to make it more robust as its own standalone project. Be really interesting actually to see how it could grow. Maybe within the CDF would be really nice.
Yeah, we'll see if there's interest from anybody else, but might as well. Yeah, I mean, I want to have it ready so that when someone does express interest, we can point them as to what they need to do to contribute, so that we're preemptively ready there.
I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit now. Do you have any thoughts on the long-term architecture around plugins?
I need to think about that more. I've thought about that a bit, about pluggability, because Prow has a plugin architecture that we've basically inherited with Lighthouse, but I'm not a huge fan of it. I've been thinking about that, but I don't have anything concrete yet. I do want to make sure. Largely, the challenge is around distribution, because we'd have to actually embed the plugin binary there. Because again, Prow has an external plugin architecture as well as the internal ones, but that has to be bundled into the distribution, into the image, etc. And so I have not yet figured out how I want to end up dealing with that, but I do plan to.
Cool. Yeah, so that would be a good one that we can look at in the future. Cool.
Any other questions or topics for discussion? Well, that was a good office hours. We can call it a close now. And thank you all very much for being here. It's a very good discussion, number of interesting topics. So really enjoyed that. So thank you. And we have office hours every 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks' time, we'll do office hours again. And yeah, we'll leave it there. Yes, but what we would like to do is on the Google Doc that is linked to this, to the invite for this office hours, the calendar invite, what we would like to do is to have people really feel free to propose topics that you would like to have discussed. When you propose topics, you do not need to feel that you're going to present on it. You can simply be raising it as questions, and then we will try and organize in advance for people who have expertise in that area to come answer those questions at the office hours. So it does help us to have that information in advance. Great. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks,
See you in
Cara.
2 weeks.
Take care, buddy.
Thank you. Bye.